So the Mavs just brought back Dennis Smith Jr. When I think of Dennis Smith Jr., the first thing I think is defense. Dennis Smith Jr.'s defense numbers have taken a big step forward since his first run with Dallas, and the stats back it up. With the Brooklyn Nets in the 2023 to 2024 season, he ranked second in steals per 36 minutes among players with at least 1,000 minutes logged. That's no small detail. His 1.2 steals per game rate shows he's more than just active. He's disruptive in ways that actually flip possessions. That level of activity makes opposing ball handlers nervous, and it gives Dallas more chances to run in transition. His defensive rating that year was 113.7, which put him right around league average. But the key is his on-ball pressure was consistently above that standard, so the rating undersells the value of what he does at the point of attack. That kind of steal generation isn't just random gambling either. His numbers show consistent improvement in reading passing lanes and sticking tight to his assignment. The fact that he can get into the top tier for steal rate while playing within a structured scheme is what makes it sustainable. When you're producing a 2.1% steal percentage like he did in Brooklyn, which put him in the 88th percentile among guards, that's not noise. That's a habit. For Dallas, it means one extra layer of defense on the perimeter, which they didn't have at a consistent level last season. The defense versatility jumps off the stat sheet too. Smith is 6'2" and 205 pounds, which gives him a mix of quickness and sturdiness that allows him to switch onto guards and even wings. Back in the 2022 to 2023 season with Charlotte, he averaged 1.4 steals and half a block per game across just over 25 minutes. That kind of split stat line proves he's able to help on and off the ball. Guards who can credibly block shots while holding down high steal numbers don't grow on trees. For Dallas, that's big because it lets them keep their defensive shape without being locked into rigid matchups. This switching ability plays directly into what the Mavericks leaned on last year. Their defensive efficiency ticked up when they went heavier into switch schemes. Smith fits that approach because he can handle both guard spots. That opens the door for bigger lineups, like pairing him next to D'Angelo Russell or Klay Thompson while not losing coverage outside. The Mavs don't have to choose between offense and defense with him out. Instead, they can keep size on the floor and still trust their backcourt to hold its ground. The timing of his addition is especially valuable. With Kyrie sidelined for the first half of the season rehabbing his ACL, Dallas needed someone who wouldn't just tread water defensively. Smith brings a sharper edge on that side of the ball compared to the offensive-minded guards they could have leaned on. That balance matters because the Mavericks climb into the top 10 of defensive rating in the 2024 to 2025 season was one of the key reasons for their playoff run. Keeping that standard without Kyrie is now more realistic, with Smith eating minutes at the point of attack. His advanced metrics show the foundation behind these improvements. Over his career, his defensive rating has landed at 112.3, which again, for a guard, is solid. But the standout is the way his steal rate has climbed into elite territory, paired with consistent energy on possessions. His defensive win shares during his peak seasons have hung around 0.05 to 0.08 per game. That's not just filling space on the stat sheet. It's proof that even in smaller roles, he pushes lineups in a positive direction. It's also worth noting that his overseas stint with Real Madrid in the 2024 to 2025 year wasn't wasted time. Playing in systems that drill team defense first sharpened his fundamentals. You can see it in how he anticipates, rotates, and communicates now. That growth slots right into what Jason Kidd has emphasized in Dallas: accountability and structure on the defensive end. Stats don't measure communication directly, but the consistency of his defense metrics after returning suggests he's applying those lessons in a measurable way. Lineup flexibility is another statistical bonus here, because Smith can log heavy minutes without being a liability on either guard assignment. Dallas can experiment more freely. They can run jumbo lineups, they can try 3-guard looks, and they don't have to panic about matchups. It all shows up in the numbers when you look at how his team's defensive efficiency held steady or improved when he was on the floor in both Charlotte and Brooklyn. Those are the kind of building blocks that keep a team competitive over an 82-game season. When you dive into the percentile stats, it just keeps confirming the story. That 88th percentile steal rate, the ability to average over 1 steal and half a block per game across multiple seasons, the stability of his defensive rating across different rosters, all of it adds up. He's not an all-defense selection, but he's statistically reliable in a way that matters for a team like Dallas. especially when you line him up next to offensive creators. His defense gives balance to lineups that otherwise lean too heavy on scoring. On top of that, Smith's defensive win, shares per game rates, even in limited minutes, suggest he's a plug-in positive. That's not always the case for role players, especially guards, who can be neutral or negative on defense. His ability to tilt those numbers in the right direction is a strong argument for him soaking up steady rotation minutes, especially in the first half of the year. I also like how his stats underline the balance between individual disruption and team defense. Some guards rack up steals, but blow coverages constantly. Smith's numbers don't point to that. He's been able to keep his defensive rating in line with league averages while producing higher than average disruption numbers. That's the sweet spot. It shows he's not sacrificing team principles just to get highlights. For Dallas, that's crucial because the system relies on everyone staying connected on switches and rotations. And let's be real, the Mavs' path in the Western Conference is always going to come down to how well they defend the perimeter. Adding someone who statistically grades out as one of the better guards in generating turnover, staying versatile across positions, and contributing consistently to defensive win shares checks the right boxes. It's not flashy scoring numbers, but it's the kind of measurable edge that tips a few games across a season. Even his per 36 numbers continue the theme. His steals per 36 minutes in Brooklyn placed him among the best in the league, which means that as his minutes grow in Dallas, those disruption rates should scale. It's not hypothetical, it's rooted in what he's already produced. If Dallas keeps him in that 20 to 25 minute range, the math says the Mavericks defense will benefit steadily from his presence. His stats also prove that he's not a foul-prone defender. That balance of activity and control matters because it keeps him on the floor. Guards who play aggressive without fouling are rare, and when you find one, you hang on to him. For Dallas, it means continuity in their guard rotation, especially in games where foul trouble could otherwise derail lineups. All in all, the numbers lay it out clearly. Dennis Smith Jr. gives Dallas a guard who's near the top of the league in steals per 36 minutes, who can switch across multiple assignments, who holds up in defensive rating, and who posts consistent defensive win shares. He's the kind of player who lets a team keep experimenting with lineups while knowing the defense isn't going to crater. And when you've already built your identity around balance, those are the stats you want on your side. But Smith will also help Flagg a lot. Dennis Smith Jr.'s presence alongside Cooper Flagg gives the Mavericks some very real advantages, and the numbers show exactly how it all comes together. Smith's defense is where the partnership starts to click. In the Brooklyn season of 2023 to 2024, he ranked second in the league in steals per 36 minutes among players with at least 1,000 minutes. That translated into 1.2 steals per game in under 19 minutes of action. What that means for Flagg is that Smith takes away a chunk of the perimeter stress. When Smith is hounding a primary ball handler into rush passes, Flagg gets to use his size and instincts as a help defender instead of chasing guards all night. It's the perfect complement. One player forcing turnovers and mistakes at the point of attack, and another cleaning up the mess with length and timing. That pressure at the perimeter helps Flagg in another way. Flagg's defensive calling card has always been his versatility. He can guard wings, he can switch onto forwards, and he can rotate to contest shots at the rim. But having Smith on the ball gives Flagg more freedom to anticipate and cheat into those help positions. The stat that proves it is Smith's 2.1% steal rate in Brooklyn, which landed him in the 88th percentile among guards. That level of disruption funnels the ball exactly where you want it, into crowded lanes where Flagg is waiting. It's not just about Smith's steals, it's about how those steals set Flagg up to maximize his weak side shot blocking and rebounding impact. Smith's numbers in Charlotte back up his versatility. In the 2022 to 2023 season, he averaged 1.4 steals and 1/2 of a block per game while playing 25 minutes. For a guard his size, that's a strong indication that he's able to defend on and off the ball. Add Flagg's athletic profile into that mix, and suddenly you've got a front-court, backcourt tandem that can handle switches, rotate, and still protect the rim. The Mavericks were stronger last year when they leaned into switch-heavy schemes, and the Smith-Flagg pairing fits right into that formula. Now let's talk about what happens on the offensive side. Smith has averaged 4.2 assists across his career, and his rookie season in Dallas topped out at 5.2. That shows he's capable of setting the table. When you look at Flagg as a finisher, it's a natural fit. Smith's quick first step and 40-inch vertical mean he can force defenses to collapse in pick-and-roll action. That collapse creates easy lob lanes or dump-offs for Flagg. The math supports it. Smith's ability to draw 2 defenders on drives has consistently generated open shots for teammates. Flagg doesn't need to do everything himself. He can cut, roll, or spot up, and Smith's numbers show he'll find him. Spacing is where the partnership gets a little complicated. Smith's career three-point percentage sits under 30%, with the last 3 seasons dipping even lower to around 25%. That weakness does shrink the floor if he's paired with non-shooters, but even in that context, the numbers prove he's still valuable because of how often he collapses defenses. His drive and kick game may not pad his shooting splits, but it does create open looks for players around him. For Flagg, that can mean open mid-range jumpers or space to cut baseline. The stats on Smith's assist percentages show he's a willing passer, so those opportunities are there. The fast break numbers are where this duo could shine the brightest. Smith has always been a spark in transition. In Brooklyn, his 1.2 steals in under 19 minutes per game show that he creates live ball turnovers. Pair that with Flagg's ability to run the floor, and the numbers predict a dangerous fast break combo. Smith's career average of 3 rebounds per game is solid for a guard, and every one of those boards can kickstart transition. Flagg's mobility ensures he'll be on the receiving end of those plays, and the efficiency of transition possessions is always higher than half-court sets. It's a numbers-based guarantee that Dallas will get more easy points whenever Smith and Flagg are on the floor together. Another important layer is lineup flexibility. Kyrie's absence at the start of the season means Dallas needs guards who can hold down roles without sinking the defense. Smith provides that, and it indirectly helps Flagg by easing him into NBA minutes. Instead of forcing Flagg to carry too much responsibility early, Smith's defensive edge allows the coaching staff to keep rotations balanced. It's supported by the fact that Dallas maintained a top 10 defensive rating in the 2024 to 2025 season. Holding that standard requires players like Smith to protect the perimeter, so rookies like Flagg don't get overwhelmed. The advanced defensive metrics show Smith is a steady hand. His career defensive rating of 112.3 is right in the zone you want for a guard, and his recent seasons with Brooklyn and Charlotte pushed him higher in steal rate and defensive activity. His defensive win shares have floated around the 0.05 to 0.08 per game during his better years. Those numbers may sound small, but across a season, they add up to consistent positive contributions. For Flagg, that's another piece of security. He knows that lineups featuring him and Smith aren't going to crater defensively. Smith's presence also gives Flagg an on-court mentor. It shows up in subtler ways than pure stats, but the results connect. Smith's return to Dallas carries the history of being a 9th overall pick who averaged over 15 points and 5 assists as a rookie. His career since then has had ups and downs, but the fact that he's still producing positive defense stats years later proves he's adapted. For Flagg, who's walking into his first NBA season with huge expectations, there's value in having a teammate who's lived through the weight of being a high draft pick. Even though locker room presence isn't a number, the efficiency of lineups with balanced chemistry often shows it indirectly. In other words, Smith's impact on culture has a measurable effect. The challenges are worth spelling out too. Smith's shooting remains a glaring hole, with his percentages over the last 3 seasons dragging down spacing. Flagg will sometimes be forced to work in tighter lanes because of it. The fix comes from lineups that surround both players with shooting. Pairing them with someone like Klay Thompson ensures the spacing stays intact. It's not a flaw that erases Smith's positives, but it is a limitation that has to be accounted for. There's also roster competition. Smith is fighting for a spot on a non-guaranteed deal, and Brandon Williams has partially guaranteed money with better shooting percentages, including 40% from 3 in 2024 to 2025. Smith's role is not automatic, but if he wins it, his defensive value makes him a strong fit with Flagg. If he doesn't, the numbers tell us that Williams' efficient scoring might provide spacing benefits, though not the same defensive lift. Either way, Flagg benefits from the competition because it ensures the guard rotation around him is sharp. In playoff scenarios, Smith's statistical profile becomes even more valuable. Guards who can hound elite scorers like Curry or Anthony Edwards don't grow on trees. Smith's proven steal rates and consistent defensive rating suggest he can do that job in short bursts. Flagg, who thrives as a helper and secondary rim protector, gets more opportunities to shine when someone else is controlling the perimeter. It's a direct synergy. And in crunch time, even if Smith isn't closing because of his shooting, his defense can be used in situational possessions to secure stops. Historical context adds another statistical layer to his return. Smith's rookie year numbers of over 15 points and 5 assists show he has the baseline talent to be more than just a specialist. His season with Real Madrid in 2024 to 2025 honed his decision-making and pace, which again shows up in his turnover rates and assist numbers. That seasoning overseas makes him better prepared to play alongside someone like Flagg, who needs guards that can feed him consistently in structured sets. When you tally it all up, the numbers paint a clear picture. Smith's elite percentile steal rates, his ability to average over 1 steal and 1/2 of a block per game, his stable defensive rating, and his consistent defensive win share contributions combine to give Dallas a dependable guard. For Flagg, that means less stress defending shifty guards, more easy transition opportunities, and a smoother path into NBA rotations. The statistical floor is solid, and the ceiling scenario has him anchoring defensive possessions that let Flagg focus on scoring and secondary playmaking. And the thing is, Kyrie is still out. Dennis Smith Jr. stepping in while Kyrie is out gives the Mavericks exactly the kind of stability the stats point to. His defense has been his calling card, and that's where the immediate help shows up. In the Brooklyn season of 2023 to 2024, he averaged 1.2 steals per game in under 19 minutes. That's second in the league in steals per 36 minutes among players with at least 1,000 minutes logged. It means he isn't just active, he's disruptive in ways that matter. His defensive rating with Brooklyn came in at 113.7, which put him right at league average. But when you pair that with his high percentile steal rate, you see the picture more clearly. He locks onto ball handlers, forces mistakes, and keeps the perimeter from breaking down, which is crucial when a team's offensive star is sidelined. Smith's versatility on defense is another reason he can hold things together without Kyrie. At 6'2" and 205 pounds, he has the strength and quickness to switch across both guard positions and even slide onto smaller wings. With Charlotte in the 2022 to 2023 season, he averaged 1.4 steals and 1/2 of a block across just over 25 minutes per game. That's not just box score noise. It's proof he can defend both on the ball and away from it. Dallas leaned heavily on switch schemes last season, and Smith's skill set fits directly into that system. He keeps their defensive structure intact when Kyrie's offense isn't there to cover lapses. On the offensive end, the numbers show he's not Kyrie, but he's capable of keeping the ball moving. His rookie year in Dallas saw him average 5.2 assists per game, and later in Charlotte, he posted 4.8. That's enough to steady an offense and let other scorers like D'Angelo Russell or Klay Thompson thrive. He's not going to carry a scoring load, but his history as a primary ball handler means the team can slide Russell off the ball more often. That flexibility matters in a stretch where one of their main creators is sidelined. The athleticism still jumps out of the numbers too. His 40-inch vertical is no myth, and it still gives him juice in transition. Smith has always been a player who thrives when the game speeds up. His steals and his career average of around 3 rebounds per game help ignite the break. Add his speed to the equation, and Dallas has someone who can push the pace while Kyrie is out. Transition offense becomes a safety valve, giving the Mavericks easier baskets when half-court scoring gets harder without Kyrie's creativity. Beyond stats, his intangibles show up in consistent ways. Smith has built a reputation for resilience and steady locker room presence. After bouncing around the league, adapting to different systems, and even spending time overseas with Real Madrid in 2024 to 2025-25, he's shown he can handle changing roles. That professionalism matters for a team trying to keep its balance without one of its stars. You can see the indirect impact of that in the way lineups with him tend to post stable defensive efficiency numbers. Even if his offensive stats don't wow anyone, the advanced numbers back it up. His steal percentage of 2.1 with Brooklyn landed him in the 88th percentile among guards. That's elite disruption, and it means Dallas gains more possessions just by having him on the floor. His defensive win shares in peak years hover around 0.05 to 0.08 per game. And while that sounds small, it's a steady plus every time he gets minutes. Over a stretch of games without Kyrie, that kind of contribution keeps the Mavericks from slipping down the standing. His shooting percentages are the known limitation. Across his career, his three-point mark has hovered under 30%, and in the last 3 seasons, it's been closer to 25. That lack of spacing is real, and it forces Dallas to pair him with reliable shooters in lineups. But when you stack his defensive stats against those shooting numbers, you see why he still gets minutes. His defensive rating stays stable, his steal rate remains in the top tier, and his playmaking totals hold. It means that while he won't stretch the floor, he will hold down everything else the Mavericks need during Kyrie's absence. What's most important is that the numbers point to Smith being a player who tilts lineups defensively. He doesn't sink lineups with turnovers or fouls, and he gives them more control on the perimeter. With Kyrie out, Dallas can't afford to lose games because guards torch them night after night. Having Smith in the rotation means that risk is minimized. His career arc shows consistency in the things he does well, and his stats from Brooklyn and Charlotte prove he can do it in multiple systems. For Dallas, that means they can keep their identity intact even without Kyrie. They'll miss his scoring and creation, but Smith's numbers prove he can cover some of the gaps in defense and ball handling. His impact is measurable in steals, in defensive ratings, in assist totals, and in the way he frees other guards to slide into more comfortable roles. Those are the contributions that keep a team steady when a star is sidelined. That's the math. One guard producing top-tier steal rates, stable defensive ratings, decent assist numbers, and transition energy, all while Kyrie is out. It's not flashy, but it's exactly the kind of production that ensures the Mavericks keep their balance until their star guard returns. But one thing I'm really excited for is how good Smith and Exum will be on defense together. Dennis Smith Jr. and Exum together on the Mavericks give you a defensive pairing that looks even better when you start digging into the stats. Smith has grown into a true point of attack pest. In the Brooklyn season of 2023 to 2024, he put up 1.2 steals per game in less than 19 minutes. That ranked second in the league in steals per 36 minutes, among players who logged at least 1,000 minutes. He doesn't just play hard, he turns defensive possessions into transition opportunities. Pair that with Exum's size at 6'5", and you get a backcourt that can hound guards while also holding their ground against wing. Exum's career defensive rating has consistently hovered around 110 to 112, which is right in the range of Smith's better years. Together, they cover for each other's gaps. Smith applies pressure, Exum uses length and positioning. When you look at the advanced defensive metrics, the synergy starts to pop. Smith's career defensive rating of 112.3 doesn't jump off the page, but it's backed by that 2.1% steal percentage he produced in Brooklyn, landing him in the 88th percentile among guards. That means he's among the most disruptive perimeter players in the league. Exum, on the other hand, doesn't produce the same volume of steals, but he consistently forces deflections and contests. In his better stretches, he averaged over 1 steal per game and kept opponents under 45% shooting when he was the primary defender. Put that together, and the two of them could realistically force 3 or 4 extra turnovers per game when they share the court. That's the type of impact that directly shifts point differential. The lineup flexibility this pairing gives Dallas is important too. With Kyrie's health always a storyline, having Smith and Exum able to log meaningful guard minutes matters. Smith is on a non-guaranteed deal, so nothing is guaranteed. But if he sticks, he and Exum become a defensive foundation for bench units. Smith can pressure the ball, Exum can switch across multiple spots, and suddenly, the Mavericks' second unit looks much less vulnerable defensively. And in late-game situations, you can picture Smith glued to a star guard like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, while Exum uses his length on wings. That's a closing option Jason Kidd can trust when the Mavericks need stops. If those minutes hold opponents under 100 points per 100 possessions, that's the kind of efficiency swing you dream of in clutch time. The way they fit into Dallas schemes is clean. Smith's agility helps him chase through screens, while Exum's frame lets him switch or fight through picks against bigger bodies. The Mavericks relied on switch-heavy coverages last year, and both players fit that mold perfectly. You don't have to hide either of them. In transition, they're both fast and disciplined enough to slow opposing breaks. Smith's career average of around 3 defensive rebounds per game shows he can finish possessions, and when he does, his speed ignites fast breaks. Exum running the lane or finding the right rotation just makes that even stronger. Historically, Smith's defensive arc has been one of steady growth. Back in his rookie year, he was known more for offensive flashes, but over 7 seasons, he's racked up over 2 defensive win shares. That's not superstar territory, but it shows he's been a net positive on that side, even while bouncing through different roles. Exum's story is about resilience after injuries. When healthy, he's been one of the more consistent defensive guards, holding his matchups to inefficient nights and providing switchability across multiple positions. His best stretches in Utah and then later in Dallas showed the same thing. His length and IQ made him a dependable defensive piece. Together, you get a player who thrives on aggression and another who thrives on positioning. There are still limitations. Smith and Exum both have some weaknesses against elite shooters. Smith has allowed opposing players to shoot around 35 to 40% from three when guarded directly. And Exum isn't the kind of lockdown wing stopper who erases high-volume scorers by himself. Teams that space the floor heavily can pull them away from their strength. That said, when used properly in switch schemes, they limit damage and funnel plays toward help defenders. And while Smith has to secure his roster spot over Brandon Williams, whose shooting percentages are much better, his defensive impact gives him an edge. If he makes the roster, he pairs with Exum in ways Williams doesn't. Projecting their impact, the numbers suggest lineups featuring both could settle into a defensive rating around 108 to 110. That would represent a big jump from the Mavericks' 112.1 defensive rating that ranked 20th in the league 2 years ago. In playoff settings, that improvement matters even more. Smith's career average of over 1 steal per game and Exum's ability to stay in front of multiple positions make them ideal to throw at scorers like Jamal Murray or Anthony Edwards. Over a 7-game series, those possessions add up, and suddenly you're talking about swing moments that decide wins. The interesting part is that their skill sets don't overlap too much. Smith thrives on chaos, steals, deflections, live ball turnovers. Exum thrives on control, length, contests, rotations. Together, they give Dallas a balance. In the backcourt, they haven't always had. You can build second unit minutes around them, or you can close games with them when the priority is defense. Statistically, that versatility shows up in both players' consistent defensive ratings, their solid win shares, and their impact on lineup stability. Add it all up, and what you see is a pairing that statistically makes sense and fits the Mavericks' defensive system. Smith brings the disruption, Exum brings the discipline, and together they raise the floor for Dallas. Their numbers point toward better turnover creation, stronger matchups against guards and wings, and a defensive identity that holds up even when offensive stars sit. That's exactly how they can transform Dallas defense in the 2025 to 2026 season. If you guys enjoyed this, I'll be posting every day. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.